it's an inside joke that we have. Oh, we're on. Welcome to the Church Solutions podcast. My name is Phil Thompson. Steve Lacy is a little bit under the weather today, so he's not going to be with us. But we do have a wonderful guest today, which I think you're going to enjoy. And I'll let people in. We've mentioned this occasionally, but I'll let people on the inside here. There's a joke that we have been doing for many, many years, and that is right before we start recording, I always ask Steve, how's my hair look? And it's just kind of my hair used to be a lot longer, and now it's a little shorter, but it still has problems. So anyhow, that's the joke. So anyhow, this is brought to you by streamingchurch.tv. That's us. We have been serving churches since 2001. And streaming video has been our primary product, although we have other things like mobile apps and other stuff out there. And we've been doing these podcasts probably since 2010 or so. So thanks for being with us today. So let me read the bio of our guest today. This is a topic that is kind of near to dear to me, so we'll get into that in a moment. But our guest today is an author, a speaker, organizational consultant, and the host of Your Best Friend's Mom podcast. And she's also a certified working genius practitioner. I have no idea what that is, but I'm going to find out. She partners with organizations and faith-based communities to help fix messy team dynamics. That's always important. Eliminate workplace frustrations and build high-performance cultures. I can't believe churches would have any kind of messy team dynamics, but maybe we'll get into that. I'm being sarcastic. I was a pastor for years, and so I get all this. So she's also the author of the book, Look for Good, a practical guide to finding God as a constant anchor through grief, joy, and the daily grind. So folks, please welcome Kathy Rogers to the Church Solutions podcast. Kathy, how are you today?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me, Phil.
All right. Well, you're very welcome. And I can tell you do a podcast because you've got a great podcast background. You got lighting in the background. You got it all set. You got a great microphone in front of you, headphones. For years, I could never figure out my background because I just do this from my office. And I finally got smart and put like a white background here that kind of helped anyhow. But enough about me. So look, we're having a lot of fun here already, but we're going to talk about a very serious subject here. And I think guys, there's dudes listening to this podcast as well as women. But guys, I want you to stick around and listen to this because we're going to talk about cancer, and we're going to talk about how it affects women, especially. My family, cancer took my family. My mother had cancer, and she died eventually. My father did. I have friends. Anybody that's out there has been touched by cancer in some form or some way, right? I mean, it's just very common. And you, Kathy, you're a cancer survivor. You lost both your mother and a 29-year-old daughter to the same disease. That'd be terrible. So let's talk a little bit about, and also as I've read in your bio here earlier, you're a survivor of breast cancer, but your family has been hit by this disease 3 generations.
Yes, at least.
So, yeah. So when a woman in the church receives that initial diagnosis, obviously her world has got to be spinning. And so from your own journey, what does it look like to practically wrestle with fear while trying to anchor yourself in the Lord, in God's goodness?
Well, that is exactly when my faith was tested and grew to a place that I didn't even realize that I just had a checklist faith before then. Like do all the right things. I'm praying. I'm going to church. I'm reading my Bible. But it was more of okay, done. Let's get on with life. But when your life is challenged, and to be completely honest, I was very, I would say, optimistically delusional at the beginning. Oh, this is really nothing. Oh, the biopsy is really nothing. Oh, the diagnosis. But mine was a pretty significant. Now I just remember the words aggressive and invasive. And they were pretty quick to get everything going. So I was diagnosed and then began my treatment. And even in that treatment, I think it's just such a new environment. I mean, you don't know what to think. I talk about this actually in the book, that you're just so focused on whatever that treatment is. We just become myopic in that, that lens just closes in, and we just become selfish in what's the next thing. And I'm I remember my friends being there, and I have a strong group. We've been in the same church for 40 years. I have a strong group of women, families, couples that are together, but I don't even know that I knew what I needed then. It's such your world's just rocked upside down. And so I think that God used that. I felt a peace even in that of, okay, God's with me. I did do some negotiating and try to argue with him about not losing hair and those kind of things, but he also brought me to his word. And Ephesians 3:14 through 21 were my anchor verses during that time, because I did want to be solidly in the love of God, to have Jesus, the roots grow down strong, and to be empowered, and then to know his love. And it became reality through that journey.
I was incredibly naive when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. I was, I think, 14 years old at the time, and
Wow.
she had history of health issues uh,
Yes.
forever, and she always got better. She had an open heart surgery back in 1968, and
Uh-huh.
I think I was 10
Wow.
years old, and she got better. And so when
Mhm.
she had breast cancer, I just assumed, well, she'll get better, she'll be fine.
Mhm.
And she had a mastectomy, and then it came back. At least
Mhm.
2 or 3 years later, it came back, and eventually it was, all through her system. This is in the early 70s, and
Yes.
and it kind of, when she died, it just kind of shocked me. I mean, I remember my father coming home. She had gone in for exploratory surgery. I don't want to make this about me, but I remember uh, looking into her eyes before we knew that the cancer was back, and it was at dinner time. I remember looking in her eyes, and her eyes were yellow.
Oh,
She
wow.
had, jaundice,
Yes.
and so I remember saying that, Mom, your eyes are yellow. And I remember the shock on her face. And then when she went in for the diagnosis, my dad came back from the hospital, and it's the first time I ever saw my father cry.
Mhm.
He walked up to us, my brother and I, and he said, she's full of cancer.
Mm.
She's going to die. And eventually she did. So I was just naive about it.
Right.
Of course, I was kind of young too at the time.
Right.
Now I understand it. So uh, when you're going through cancer like this, your body obviously changes, as you mentioned. Your energies, I'm sure, changes, and you probably feel like you're losing control. So
Yes.
what advice would you have for women, and maybe even men, who are friends of women, or maybe spouses or whatever? What advice would you have for people who are fighting cancer right now, especially women fighting cancer right now, and struggling to figure out, what's going on and who they are in the midst of all this?
I have three things that come to mind. The first one is, um, it is a journey you're on. It does not have to become your identity. No matter how severe the diagnosis, no matter how dreadful it is, our faith and perspective truly can guide us in how we see that. We do not have to choose the victim mentality, no matter how dire the situation is. We can choose that it's a journey and say, okay, God, what do you want me to learn from this? How can I point to you in this? Second of all, give yourself grace. I mean, one of the most traumatic parts for me, I was on a schedule for 26 weeks of chemo, and some of the chemo was some of the harshest there is. I had the triple negative diagnosis, which, like I said, is invasive and aggressive. And so they have this one chemo that's called the red devil in the medical world. Well, I had a friend who wouldn't let me call it that, because she said Satan gets no credit for healing you. So we called it God juice. But what that did, like, after 1 week of treatment, I had gained 2 pounds. Well, I'm not a very big person. I'm like 5'2", and I don't carry that well. And so I did the math on that, and I was like, okay, I'm about to get an additional 1/3 of my weight. And that just, I'm not only going to be bald, but I'm now going to weigh 50 pounds more. This is not going to be a good thing. And so I advocated for myself and I said to the doctor, okay, I'm okay with your treatment. We can go with this, but I don't want to gain 2 pounds every week. And he said, well, it's the steroids. Maybe we can back them up. Okay, let's try that. Let's back them up. Let's see how that goes. But there were times when I would argue with him over things that were happening as far as, do we have to do it this way? That I didn't win my argument. But I had to give myself grace. And I had to trust that whatever happened through the chemo and through the surgeries, that there would be life after that, whatever that looked like for my family. And the other thing I would say, to me, now I know how painful it was for my husband to walk through it, to be unsure of what was going on, to be helpless when things were really hard, to know that he had a journey to walk to, and that fear that would pop in of, okay, what would life be without her? What if this is not going to work out? And I see that as maybe a group that we don't minister to that much, that we don't take into account the families and what they're going through. Sorry.
No, that's very good. Well, let's talk a little more about that. And my next question, you pretty much answered it already. I was going to ask you, how can a woman give herself permission to just kind of lay down, accept help, and maybe even just be weak for a season or sick for a season? I mean, because it's usually the women that are taking care of everybody else, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're cooking the meals.
Yes.
They're running the ministries many times.
Yes.
They're holding the family together.
Yes.
And yet, now there's this situation here. So is there some tip you can give about giving yourself permission?
This is where I was totally fascinated, because I am a very independent person. I'm a business owner, and we are franchisees with Nothing But Cakes. And we had opened our location just over 14 months when I was diagnosed. So we're a brand new business trying to make things work. Here's where I was fascinated. I'm not good at letting go of control. You don't really have a choice during this, but God's provision in that was amazing. And I learned to accept that. For example, the week before I got my confirmed diagnosis, my manager gave notice and was changing jobs. Okay, that's fine. I had been running it. It was fine. Well, that doesn't work when you have pretty much the full-time job of fighting cancer. But I had a manager who had worked for me before in another place who texted me and said, you know what? God told me that I should come work for you. I only have 9 months before I move away to get married. I want to run your bakery for you while you're going through chemo. Okay. Thank you, God. And I would have never thought of that. That was God's provision. That happened so many times through my journey, whether someone would just show up. And I worked some just to keep normalcy in my life as much as possible. But, people see what you're going through. You have a cap over your bald head. You don't have any eyebrows. You look a weird color. I mean, they know, but I would have people show up and just slip me a $50 and say, you know what? I thought you might need this for a copay or parking. And wow, God's provision. Or can I pray for you today? I can tell you're having a tough day. Or friends who would I had 2 friends who sent me a card every single week that I was going through chemo, just to say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And people who would just call and say, I was baking bread. I had an extra loaf. I'm going to drop it at your door. I saw the community of believers, of Christians who were listening to the prodding of God to say, someone needs you today. Here is who you can go and love on today. And I just love that beauty of our obedience is filling a need in someone else. And I never saw that more than when I was going through cancer, when we lost my mother, when Elena died. So it's beautiful to watch the community and the family and fellowship of believers be there for each other.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed it is. So let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum here, because I know that unfortunately well-meaning people, well-meaning Christians, well-meaning people often say the wrong thing when somebody is sick or somebody is grieving. And they, sometimes we're offered just some generic platitudes or unhelpful theology. So from your experience, what are the things people said and did that well, you pretty much answered it already. That actually brought you comfort.
Yes.
I've got some of these questions here. And what should we stop saying? What should we stop saying to people who are suffering?
I, I, there's so much to not say, but I also understand it. I understand that as the person in suffering, I learned this very early in several situations, and friends who had been through cancer told me the same thing would happen. When they are with you, when someone is with you and know you are diagnosed, a fear comes over them as to, oh gosh, this could happen to me. So then the conversations may be rationalizations of their fears or hoping that it won't happen to them, or just inquisitiveness that's beyond reasonable because they're trying to put themselves in your shoes to say, okay, like, how did you find it? What was this? Exactly the details. Here's what I would say. It is never the wrong time to be kind. And it is, if you don't know what to say, just say, I don't know what to say, but I see you. I know you're hurting right now, and I am praying for you. Even though I don't know the specifics, I want you to know that I love you and I care for you right now.
Yeah, that's really good advice. All right, so I know from experience, not personal experience, but from watching people and everything, that the whole treatment thing here takes more than just a couple of weeks, right? We're talking months.
Yes.
Survivorship is years. So how can church leaders and even women's ministries, looks like I lost you here
Oh
on
no, I'm still
audio.
here.
That's okay. Well,
Yeah.
you're still here, so that's good.
Okay.
I lost your video. Your video's back again. So how can women, let me rephrase the question here. How can church leaders and women in ministry, how can they build like a better framework for long-term support that doesn't just forget about people, doesn't just forget about the survivors, after a couple of weeks?
I love that because I think we have to be intentional. We have to take action. I believe that the Holy Spirit will nudge us, but you know what? We can also put reminders in our phone to check on people. There are times when I think there's, okay, she's healed, she's fine, I'm sure she's doing great. Or the same in grief. Oh, well, it's been 6 months. Life goes on. And I don't expect to be the center of everyone's world, but as we are intentional in thinking of each other, let the person know that they were in your mind. Even a text message that was like, you know what? You popped in my mind during my prayer time today, and I lifted you and your family up. Here's an excellent example. When my daughter was diagnosed with her cancer, someone started a prayer, I guess, calendar. People committed to certain times of day for a whole week. And she lost her battle in 6 months. I mean, like, it was a very fast experience. We had people that are still praying for our family during that time that they signed up for, even years later. That is beautiful. And the fact that they let us know so that we can see they still care is such a powerful thing. So I think the intentionality is the important part.
Mm. It must have been just terrible losing a child. My son ended up with, he was in the hospital a couple of weeks during COVID. He had double COVID pneumonia, and we were
Wow.
just really concerned about him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very stressful for us. But it had to be just losing a daughter, just 29 years old. Tell me what that experience was like.
Um, it was hard. She was a young mom. She had a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old and an amazing husband. And it was hard, but I truly can look back on it knowing God walked us with us through it the entire time. And I just changed this perspective of we had 6 intentional months. We didn't know it was our only 6 months, but we were intentional in life. We celebrated. We had times together. We enjoyed amazing Christmases. We have no regrets in that time. Now, is it hard? Yes. Was it hard to continue to be there and be strong? It was really hard to process the grief for an entire family. And guess what I learned? Not my responsibility. God doesn't have grandchildren. God was ministering to each person in my family as we walked through that. And He has been there and He's provided. I just have to shift the perspective of being grateful for those 29 wonderful years. You know, a mom who has a stillbirth would love to have 29 years. You know, even in the old days, you know, we're on the East Coast. You put your 14-year-old daughter who just gets married, you put her on a covered wagon and say, honey, I hope life is good to you. And you don't know. Only now, with our strong communication and our total information, do we sometimes get this unrealistic expectation of we will always outlive our children. And that is glorious and wonderful and a wonderful dream. But if it doesn't happen, God is still there. He mourns with us and He will get us through it and use it to His glory, whatever our experience is.
Tell me a little bit about the book. You're the author of the book, Look for Good. What is it all about?
It is how God is with us in all the times, in the grief, in the celebrations, in the trivial, mundane, everydays. He is there, but we don't always see Him. Look for those glimmers. And I talk about how He really did solidify my faith during my cancer journey, which was now 8 years ago. And that solid faith is what carried me through my mom's subsequent passing, Elena's struggle and death. That solid part of knowing He loves me, He's walking through it with me, and to be able to even have a perspective of gratitude knowing He's with me. Because you know what? Life happens. We are all, just the number of experiences you and I, just two people in our cancer, in the loss, in the sad health challenge times. But God is there. He is always there, and He can use our experiences to strengthen our faith, to bring glory to Him as we point to Him in those hard times. And that's what the book's about.
And people can get the book, Look for Good. They can get it on Amazon, I'm assuming. And
yes.
You have a website too, right?
I do.
What's the website?
It is thecathyrogers.com. And on that site, we actually have merchandise available, which includes a hardback signed copy of the book. If you're looking to gift it as a nice gift, that's a good place to go.
Okay. So tell me now, let me switch gears again. Tell me about this podcast you've got, Your Best Friend's Mom. What is that all about?
That came out of the relationships that I had with Elena and my older daughter, Kaylee's friends, in that how Elena was that friend. Before she was gone, she was the one that everyone went to, you know, with what should I do about this relationship? Or, you know, here's this. And multiple of her friends would say that she said, well, my mom says. And God just used that to spark you know what? Others need to hear that perspective of hope, of what God's doing in your life through studying His Word, just through the seasons of life. And so that's where the name Your Best Friend's Mom came from. And it's really just me talking about what God is doing in my life and just perspective on, I don't know, life, I guess.
Okay. And it's available, probably any platform that people get their podcast, Spotify,
Apple, YouTube channel. So, yes.
Yeah. All right. Good deal. All right. So let's wrap up here. And if there's, and one of the things I like about doing podcasts, I used to do radio for years. And my dad, when I first got into broadcasting, back in the dark ages, my dad said, "Oh, that's interesting. You never know you never know who's listening, and you never know that signal's going out there. And he wasn't real. He was a Unitarian, but he kind of had this idea of it's going out there. You never know who's going to listen to it. And the thing I like about podcast is it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's you do a podcast, it's there, and you never know who's going to run into it, who's going to listen to it. And so that's the beauty of, I think, of podcasting. But if there's a woman right now listening to this podcast or watching it, maybe she's in a hospital room or a quiet bedroom, and maybe she's feeling forgotten by God, isolated by cancer.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best friend's mom's piece of advice, piece of truth that you would speak to her directly to her heart right now?
You really are not alone. God loves you so much, and he is there for you. And he will send people to be there for you. Just trust him, pray, study his word. I mean, the truth in his word is just, it has been such a comfort in my life. And I just want the love of God to shine through, even in the darkest moments of our lives. Even if there's just a very small glimmer of hope, find that glimmer and look at that light, because it can be brighter. And this is just one speck of time. Just keep going, because you're loved and you have a future.
That's good. Kathy Rogers has been our guest today. She's the author. She's a speaker. We need to have you back on again, because I do want to talk to you about working with teams,
Yes.
Church teams. You do that stuff. And so we definitely need to have you on again to talk specifically about that. But I hope the guys listening, as well as the women here, that I hope they've gotten something out of this, because, it's a very difficult situation that women go through. Everybody goes through it when it's cancer. But I feel like we wanted to address this specifically to women on this podcast, because, as I said at the beginning, we have a lot of women that are involved in churches and leadership and even on tech teams. And so thank you so much, Kathy, for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been my honor. And I pray that blessings on your continued podcast. And
Well,
I'd
thank
love
you.
to come back.
Yeah, well, we'll have you on. And if you, again, I want to plug your podcast, Your Best Friend's Mom podcast, the Kathy Rogers. By all means, check that out. And if you're interested in the book, Look for Good is the name of the book. You can find it on Amazon, or you can go to Kathy Rogers. And again, what's the website again? Is it thekathyrogers.com?
The Kathy Rogers.
Okay.
Yes.
Because you are the Kathy Rogers.
I am the Kathy Rogers, which makes me laugh every single time.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you, Kathy. And folks, thank you for spending some time. Stick around here for a moment, Kathy. But I just want to thank people for listening or watching the Church Solutions podcast, wherever it is you might be. And if we can help your church in any way, tech related or other ministry things, please reach out to us. You can just go to streamingchurch.tv, and we will be glad to help you. And on behalf of Steve Lacy, who's not here today, but he'll be back again, I'm Phil Thompson. Please take care of yourself and each other, and we'll catch you again on another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast.